I'll chime in then.
Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to our next session of the virtual roundtable web conference. In this session, we're happy to introduce Art in Second Life. Our speaker is John Pathfinder Lester. So John is an immersive learning guru, virtual world pioneer, culture builder, and online community creator. With his background in neurology, John developed the first immersive medical education products and online patient support communities while doing research at Massachusetts General Hospital and Harvard Medical School. John works with businesses and organizations building immersive online environments, peer-to-peer networks, and knowledge management systems that support collaborative work. And his bio goes on and on and on, and it's really impressive. What I'm going to add is that his hobbies include being a friend to animals, drone photography, and fixing old clocks. So this session is being live streamed and both recorded on YouTube and Facebook. Hello to everyone who is following on the stream. And without further ado, I will now let John have start his session.
Great, thank you so much. Can you hear me okay? Is my voice level okay?
Yes, it's great, yeah.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Yeah, I've been involved in lots of different immersive environments over the years. I actually developed immersive spaces for patients and caregivers where people could practice socialization skills and reduce anxiety and deal with simulating things that they wanted to do in the physical world but were challenged by. And so over the years, this idea of emotional bandwidth was something that really got stuck in my head. And especially thinking about how you could use technology to leverage the way your mind naturally works. You know, we're bound by our biology in terms of how our minds expect to see the world and interact with it. And a big part of that is a sense of place, right? So it's not just about content and people interacting with them directly, but it's about interacting with content and people in places that engage you. We remember things that happen in spaces that are fascinating and delightful to us. You know, we crave a sense of place, and I think technologies, you know, like Zoom and a lot of these collaborative technologies that people are using today are great for connecting us to each other and connecting us to content. You know, we can look at, for example, you know, art on a web page, or we can connect to another person in a video call, but we don't have a sense of a shared place often. Part of the challenge of Zoom is that it's you know, you're connected to a bunch of people at the same time, but where is it happening? It's happening on your screen. It's not really happening in a shared, explorable environment. So what I'd like to show you today is some of the work that we're doing. A new company that I've started working with over the past month is called Billions of Us, and we're basically working with different organizations who are looking for more immersive ways to collaborate. And I don't mean just, you know, oh, virtual conference rooms and virtual classrooms where you sit in virtual chairs and look at virtual PowerPoint slides. There's some value in that, but we strongly feel that the creative aspect, the sense of you know, the chemistry of surprise, the ability to be engaged by pure creativity in these environments is really critical to helping people work better together. You know, if you think about the most creative solution you ever came up with to something, probably happened when you were outside, maybe walking your dog or hiking somewhere, or walking down the street in your city or something like that. Doing something, engaging with your environment, sort of idly allowing the environment to sort of flow through you, and the surprising aspects of it. I pretty much guarantee that nobody has ever had a eureka moment while, you know, looking at a document on their desktop, or even being in a Zoom call. So I think you know, what we're trying to do is create these shared spaces. And so a big part of that is it comes down to artistic expression in these environments. And so I'm going to take you on a little tour of some examples of that, in particular in Second Life. Second Life is a platform. I actually worked at Linden Lab for 5 years, and it was in the early years of its spinning up. My focus was on education and learning in this environment and how people could learn to best use it. Um, but the platform's actually evolved quite a bit in the past 10 years, even though it's been a bit of a sleeper hit, in terms of, it didn't take off in terms of broad adoption like Facebook, but there are a lot of affordances that have been added over the years. But where I am right now is I'm inside a little personal space that I have on a region that is kind of like a space in this virtual environment that is similar to the playa at Burning Man. That was the metaphor we were going for. The, uh, the idea of seeing installation art and being able to interact with people around the art is really important. But I just wanted to show you an example of this environment. I'm just moving my camera around. That's my avatar. I was talking with some French music producers a couple of weeks ago, and so that's why I put on this avatar, so I look like Daft, one of the DJs of Daft Punk. And the idea is, your avatar itself could be an artistic expression of your creativity. I can actually, in real time, change the LEDs that appear on my helmet here. But I'm in a personal space here, and a malleable environment can be an expression of your own artistic sensibilities and your own creative things that excite you in terms of creativity. So, in my environment here, I actually have I'm playing YouTube videos of time-lapse photographies of street art. I really love street art. So here I have a video playing of someone doing a street art installation, and in my space too, I kind of have a sort of urban, a little bit of a gritty kind of slightly sci-fi aesthetic to it too. But you actually see art floating around in the environment. Like there's a Banksy stencil. I like that here. And actually, if I move my camera outside of my building, you can see there's actually somebody over here doing there's another Banksy. Oh. And then here's a little sort of installation piece of somebody doing some street art live. So it's I like to think about how art can be expressed in multiple mediums, in different mediums, in the same medium. And I think an example of this in Second Life is pretty amazing. Another thing I like to show people is you can in these virtual environments you can pull in well-known pieces of art. A lot of art is 2D; it's two-dimensional, so you can actually just take an image of something and upload an image to it. You could also modify. Like this is Nude Descending a Staircase, famous modernist piece by Duchamp, one of my favorite pieces of all time. And here's actually a fun little Banksy that I created where I mashed it up with the Daft Punk avatar. So that's a Banksy that I replaced John Travolta's character with one of the Daft Punk DJ duos. And I like also, speaking of avatars becoming creative, this was an interesting, when I was working with some art students, they were pulling in classic pieces of art, and I want to show you, my avatar is Daft Punk here, but I can also do something, let's see. I'm going to show you this. I'm going to actually change my avatar in real time. And this was an avatar that was created by a student. They were so enamored by this piece that they created a three-dimensional avatar of Nude Descending a Staircase. So in this case, like, I am nude descending a staircase, made out of geometric solids. So that gives you a sense of the uniqueness of, in particular, the Second Life platform in terms of its extreme malleability. And I think that's actually one of the reasons why it also has never caught on with the huge amount of popularity with like games like Minecraft and Animal Crossing and some of these other virtual platforms, because it is so infinitely malleable. It is user-generated content at its most extreme. Most of these other environments are gamified, and a lot of them have limited abilities for content. So when you say, yeah, I want to add some content, it's a bit of a process, or it requires, only certain types of assets can be created. In this environment, you can create things with geometric solids, but you could also import any kind of a mesh model, any standard mesh model, including rigging. If you work in Blender or Maya or 3D Studio Max, rigged and animated mesh models can be pulled right into this environment. It's extremely malleable. But I like this example of creativity, and all this is happening in real time too. So as I'm changing my avatar, Gwen is seeing me change my avatar, and I'm going to switch back to my my default outfit, which is I'll put some wings on, because why not? I'll just have some wings. Change my avatar in real time here, and this is all live without a net. Right? So I actually have some wings now, which are actually a mesh model of themselves. So if you've ever seen older Second Life things like wings and attachments, this looks like, it's actually moving in 3D. And if I may hit the ceiling here if I take off in here. Oh, there we go. You can see it actually animates just like a rigged and animated mesh model would, very very fluidly. Although the frame rate might be a little stuttery, because Zoom is probably a little stuttery with screen sharing video. Anyway, so again, when you think about art in these virtual environments, and I'm going to zoom into my avatar first-person perspective. This is just an example of a sort of personal meeting space. There's Gwen. Hey, how you doing, Gwen? We can walk outside if we want a little bit, and I have a couple places to show that I think could be interesting. This is a piece that I like. This is a Kandinsky piece where he's trying to show how you can represent dynamic movement with a minimal amount of lines. And I think when you're looking at artistic expression in these virtual environments, it doesn't have to be photorealistic. It can be, just the right visual cues to create something that is really expressive. So I'm going to walk outside my little space here, and so, oh, this is an interesting piece over here. I'm going to, I can also go into third-person perspective, or I can fly, because hey, why not? This is a piece by an artist based in Toronto. She does a lot of work with digital art, but she also does a lot of work with lost wax bronze pieces. And so I guess my video is also showing too at the same time. So like here's her piece in the physical world. It's a lost wax bronze piece, kind of reminiscent of Dali's elephant, except it looks like a deer. And anyway, she created this piece in the physical world, and then created an installation piece here in the virtual environment. And again, part of the power of these exhibits is that you can actually have a sense of not just looking at a model on your screen, but you can have a sense of the scale that she wanted to create this at relative to a person. Her vision of this as an artist was to have something that was large and sort of ethereal, floating across the landscape. And you really get a sense of that in this environment when you immerse yourself in it. I'm also keeping an eye on the text chat too, so if anyone posts any questions in chat, I will, let me see. Oh, I just closed the chat window. There we go. If you post questions in text chat, I'll respond to them. So we're just walking across the playa here.
Can I just comment
Sure.
one thing from the text chat? Heidi says, the idea of emotional connection via shared space brings to mind what is happening right now with Animal Crossing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's fun because animals are very evocative emotionally, right? We have these very strong emotional connections with animals, and I think there's a powerful emotionally evocative experience with Animal Crossing, especially then when you add the idea of having children involved too. I think that's wonderful. That's a good point, Heidi. This is a piece I like to show because people think about art jumping mediums, right, and going from one medium to another. This is Filthy Fluno is this really funky urban artist who does a lot of pastel drawings in the physical world. I actually have a couple of his pieces hanging in my house here, and this is a albeit lower res screenshot of a photograph of one of his pieces. But he had some other artists who were 3D artists were very enamored of his work, and they said, hey, would you mind if we created a 3D representation of that in the space and actually make it an abstract sort of cell shaded Picasso-esque, bizarre geometry experience. And so he collaborated with them, and they created this 3D version of the piece. And the beautiful thing about this is it's actually interactive. You can actually multiple avatars can interact with this, and it moves your camera around in really interesting ways through the 3D space. So this is an example of art that jumped from 2D to 3D and is actually also participatory. Every person who engages with this art is sort of swimming around a different part of it. Sometimes, and speaking of sort of collaborative creativity, I've been in a couple meetings where the meetings were held in this piece of art, where people were brainstorming ideas. And it was interesting because they also at the same time had a shared Google Doc open, and they were taking notes, but they were in this piece of art and they loved it. They said, we're thinking creatively. We're not, we're totally engaged in this conversation because we're in an interesting space and we're experiencing all of this. No, this platform is Second Life. This is built-in Second Life. So the work that we're doing is we're building environments in this platform in Second Life, and we're also adding our own. Over time, we're adding custom scripting work, and also working to develop in other platforms as well to link them all together. But what you're looking at right now, is in Second Life, and you could log into Second Life and come here. Yes, people can visit it. I think at the moment, sometimes we close the region sometimes, but if people are interested in visiting it, what I'll do is I will I'm going to paste a link in. Let's see here. There it is. There's a Second Life URL. If you go to that URL, if you don't have Second Life, it'll ask you to install it, and if you already have Second Life installed or third-party viewer like Firestorm, it'll automatically open up. The region's not open all the time to the public, but it is a lot of the time. So, but also you can feel free to connect with me if you want a personal tour or something like that, and you can. I put the transcript here. You can also reach out to me by email. So anyway, yeah. So this part of what we're doing is the trick is to figure out how do you leverage existing tools and use them in unique different ways. That's kind of how artists think, right? Artists look at they look at a canvas and they think about how can I use this in a totally unique way, or they look at a series of found objects and they think, how can I put these found objects together in a completely unique way? And I think that's part of how we all need to think about leveraging these virtual environments for whatever the purpose is. Art just for the sake of creativity, or also creative collaboration in a school or a business or anything like that.
Pathfinder, what I've been telling earlier, a couple of people, was the experience that from the science circle we got an invitation to walk bare feet along the beach. Yeah, have you seen it? The invitation.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
And if you put the camera towards my feet, have a look. And the funny thing is that
you're barefoot. That's for sure.
Yeah. And
that's a nice tattoo.
I'm known to be bare feet all the time, and what I did is I volunteered a whole week at Burn 2, walking around and trying to orient myself in a big laggy, very, very beautiful sim, and lots of events. And it was years ago when it was really popular, and after a while I felt like my feet are burning, and I put some flames on my feet. And
interesting. Well, there's a reason for that, and again, a lot of what I've learned over the years, I go back to my original training in neurology and neuroscience. And they're called mirror neurons in your brain, and when your mind gets certain cues, it sort of fills in the gaps. And so, like, if you see you know, a visual representation of what looks like a human being, and you associate yourself with that, and something happens to that digital representation, if you're walking on hot sand, you will actually feel it's not an illusion. It's your brain is basically neurons are firing that are uh, as if you actually were experiencing that in the physical world, in a sensory kind of way. So it's the human mind's really good at filling in the gaps, and with enough of the right visual cues, um, completing the circle, so that your brain goes, okay, this is not a screen I'm looking at. This is a window into a three-dimensional world, and that's not just a bunch of pixels on the screen. That's me. And as I'm walking, if I bump into a rock, oh, I sort of feel a little visceral kind of, limbic system kind of response to that. I'm going to walk over here because this is, speaking of like sort of installation pieces, this is another example of kind of like creating art that works with landscapes. This is artist who created these stone swallows. I think it's a swallow by the tail. Looks like swallows. And oh, I just heard somebody talking on Zoom. That's okay. But again, this piece, a powerful aspect of this piece is the fact that it's in a desert, in an environment with, with stones around them, and you can actually walk through this piece and get a sense of the birds flying by you as you're walking through it, and that's part of the artist's intent. It's not meant to be looked at as a static picture. It's meant to be something you walk through. Right? I like that piece here, and I like to show you this one over here too. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Long Now Foundation in California, in the United States. But anyway, they're building something called the 10,000 Year Clock Project, and I'll leave it to you to Google the 10,000 year clock. But it's basically the idea of engineering this clock that could run for 10,000 years and have an orrery at the top of it. And they built a small scale model of it. And so, what we have here is actually a full scale model. We actually have a full scale model of it in terms of what it will actually be when it's completed in the physical world. So this is an example of can I sit here? There we go. And I think I'm sharing my sound, so you may hear like music box sound and some wind blowing in the background. A lot of these pieces have auditory aspects to them. But the beautiful thing with this, I think, is that you get a sense of scale, right? So if you're looking at a small model of this, you don't really get a sense of this is huge, But if you experience it in a shared environment with your avatar, you get a sense of, oh, I really am, 80 feet off the ground here, and able to hear the wind. The wind gets louder as you get higher up on this. So immersive art, that's what there's I can really hear the wind up here when I move my view up here. Here you get to see the planets. So I think it's also a fun collaborative experience where you can have your friends all sitting up on this at the same time. I think that's a fun experience. So let me just stand up and fall down here. I can't hurt myself. This is an area where we have collaborative meetings, but part of what makes gathering together more engaging is if you have it in an interesting, engaging environment that just has interesting objects of art around to just sort of look at, and these are just some examples of some artists who have taken 3D mesh models. Again, these are full standard sort of for artists creating 3D art, standard mesh model formats that are pulled in this environment. And in this case, the person modified it to give it this sort of digital halo. I think the title of this one is "The Future of the Roman Republic." and here's a piece, Dali's Profile of Time, a very famous piece, but this is a sort of a visualization of it as a bronze piece, as a 3D model, which means you can look at it and look around it completely like that. And sometimes people create tiny little sort of pieces of art that are amazing because in a digital environment, you can do things that you can't really do in the physical world. And I love this little, it's like a Fabergé egg. Oh, why do some of the animals? Oh, why are they translucent? That's because they were made to be sort of ghostly apparitions. We can go take a look at those closer in a moment. But I like this little Fabergé egg. You can see it's sort of a smallish object here, but when you click on it, it actually pops up and has a little 3D tableau that you can sort of zoom in on and experience this. This is actually a Chinese artist who does a lot of traditional ink brush drawings and wanted to do some things in a 3D environment. And it's sort of a beautiful little piece, and you can view it from different angles, and you can close the egg. There you go. But let's see. Someone was asking about the horses. Let me look at the chat here too. Oh, how does the mode of interaction influence the feeling of presence and being there? Well, interestingly enough, you don't need to actually feel like you are touching it with your hands. I mean, although that does give you, a level, like haptics give you a really interesting level of feeling like you're really there. But again, the human mind is really good at sort of tools. Tools become extensions of your mind. How many of you have, oh, here are these transparent. Yeah, see, these creatures are designed to be sort of ethereal. Ethereal, so you see the landscape through them. That's the artist's intent. Again, you can actually, they're even, oops, I don't think I can interact with this one. But let me touch on that point again too. If you've ever played, or talked to anyone who plays video games, after a while, the controller that you're holding in your hand, you don't even think about how you're using it. It is just an extension of yourself, right? And so, when you're using the mouse and the keyboard, or in my case, I have actually a little, it's called a 3D mouse. It looks like a little knob on my desk, and it basically allows me to move my camera in 3 dimensions just by gripping this little knob. Your brain does a really good job at just sort of filling in the gaps. So if you're clicking on it with a mouse, or if you were touching on it with your fingertip, your brain still feels like I touched that. All right. And I think there's also a lot that you can do with fully stereoscopic immersive environments like head-mounted displays for VR that are interesting. But you don't need that to have a sense of true presence in these environments, because again, your brain is really good at filling in the gaps. And I think that feeling statues and sculptures, I think there's a lot of potential for doing things like with haptics in these environments as well, haptic devices. Here's a fun example of just sort of some abstract visual art. That's just, you couldn't really build that in the physical world. Oh, there's a piece in the museum over here, and a lot of this stuff is under it's under construction. We have a colleague of mine working in this environment. Here's a fun installation piece, right? So if I'm standing over here, right? Where is it? If I stand over here, you see those 3 mannequins there? Like, it is impossible to get close to them. They just fall apart. If I can try running toward them, and they're designed that way. The artist wanted to have the experience of, like, every time you try to get close to the art, it just collapses. So it's art that cannot be viewed from close up. I love that piece because people are like, I want to get closer. If I run, it falls apart. Okay. I love that playfulness. Here are some installation pieces in this, and again, this is a space that kind of mirrors the physical world, sort of a large hangar. But you can have really amazing. This is an example of some dynamic mesh art that's a very abstract form that's changing shape. This is something that you wouldn't really be able to do in the physical world. You could go inside it with your eyes and be inside of the shape and see it from the inside. I like that piece there. And you know, it's really interesting in these spaces to look at also, you know, taking you know, two-dimensional art and pulling it into these environments and giving people the opportunity to look at them as if they were looking in an art gallery. And I think artistic, being exposed to art while being around other people is a fascinating experience. It allows you to see the world differently with other people and share how you see the world differently with other people while your point of view is being changed. Oh, here's a very powerful 3D model piece. This is a mesh model that someone created. I haven't seen that one before. That's a new piece. And I like to show this example here because there's also a way to reimagine classic pieces of art in these virtual environments.
We had a very nice question from Heidi. This is
Oh.
so cool, but where is everybody?
Because this isn't open to the public right now. Not yet.
And you go to Fantasy Fair and it's totally different.
Yeah, well, that's because we haven't announced anything here. This is all, you're getting a, you know, sneak preview of, we're going to have an official opening of this space soon. But right now, like if you, in this environment, in this particular environment, there's a lot of art that's just sort of, where is it? Let me move my camera over here. There are a lot of pieces that are just sort of laid out on the side of the road. Like it's not going to stay like that. Actually, we're going through. It's like opening up. We have a couple patrons of the arts who have, you know, have collected things over the years, and some current artists who are pulling things in. And so this is like dumping out the inventory of like the basement of the Louvre. You know, it's like all the stuff in storage. We're looking at all these different art installation pieces, and we're figuring out what to, you know, where we're going to place some of them. Oh, there's a beautiful. That's a beautiful dynamic piece of art as well. So yeah, there will be more people here. It doesn't have, you know, a lot of people or anybody visiting it right now, except I saw a couple people who work with us here at the moment, but that will change. I like this piece because this is a famous piece by Marat, by David, you know, Marat. Die as Marat. Here's the actual piece. The painting, and here is actually someone created a 3D little tableau so you could actually die, like you could actually, you know, be the person in the art. And I just think that's a beautiful little example of the creativity that you could have around reimagining existing works of art and making them interactive. I love that little piece. Let's see here. Any other questions? I know I'm the only thing standing between you all and your break, so I'm cognizant of everyone getting zoomed out over time. If there are any questions, I'll show you a couple other things. Oh, there's Tasia. She works with us. She can't hear me right now because I'm not speaking. Oh, actually, wait a minute. If I go like this, okay. Let's see if she's up here. Where did she go? Where'd she go? Tasia.
I'm hiding.
Oh, you're hiding. Where are you?
I know. I was just up in the air. Where are you?
I'm up. Oh, you came. I'm landing. I'm coming down.
Okay.
Do
Nice landing.
I know. I do a little flip. People on the Zoom call. Do you guys hear me? And do you hear Tasia?
Hi.
Yes, we hear both. Wonderful.
Oh, okay. So you can't hear them. I was just showing some people on a Zoom call examples of all the different artwork that you're putting out here. Tasia is one of those people who has an inventory of art and connections to artists, past, present, and future. It's just amazing. But I wanted to show them the audio experience here.
Yeah. I was just making a sign for it so people would know they could run through it.
Awesome. All right, cool. They were also asking, like, where is everybody? And I was explaining, it's not open to the public yet.
Right.
We've got like we've got like the warehouse of art just spread out everywhere, you know.
Yeah.
And I was showing them.
Putting the finishing touches on it today.
Yeah. This is wonderful. And so yeah, Tasia is really like a not only an art collector, She's also a curator. I would consider her a curator of art, you know, both physical and
Yeah.
virtual, and it's really amazing, the range of things. And I'm going to, since you folks on the Zoom call can hear things, this is a sound installation piece. So when I run through this, you're going to hear things. Oh. And if you just stay in one area, it won't, you know, when you move from one zone to another. That's cool. If you run through it,
You can also click on it and change colors of each of the circles.
Oh, it's interactive that way too. Oh yeah.
As well as the painting beside it on the easel. You can click on that and change colors of the triangles.
Oh, well, that's beautiful.
That's why I'm making a sign, because I figure people won't know that.
Yeah, they don't know the art of the possible, because some people are just like, I don't get it. It's like, walk into it. It's not intuitively obvious. And I love that I can hear you going through it too. It's not just my own experience. I hear
Right.
It's a shared experience.
We can make music together. Yeah.
I can just choose this one song. I love that. And it works too if you just fall on it too. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. I'll end on that note. That's so cool. All right, you can walk with this if you want. I don't want to disturb you, Tasia. This is totally.
Oh, that's okay. I will finish making my sign here and the sim ready.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yep.
So, folks, I'm going to. I'll leave my voice on in Second Life, so Tasia can hear what I'm talking about if she wants to. This is the effigy, the Burning Man effigy. This is to scale. I can't remember which year it was. This is the effigy for one of the years, but this is to scale what it was like, the size of it in the actual. I can't sit on it there.
It was always the most amazing thing when that thing got burned.
Yeah, and this is a beautiful model because they made this model actually completely architecturally accurate. So everything about this model, like these are individual boards of wood. The skeleton, everything, they just wanted to be, they didn't just want to make a facsimile of it or an interpretation. They're like, we just want to build it exactly the way it looked inside and out. And I love this piece too, because hidden inside the head is a photograph of the actual effigy at Burning Man that year. So there's the actual effigy, a real life photograph of it inside the virtual. I think that's fun. And here we're going to walk. I love this. We had somebody who was doing some landscaping, and they just put neon palm trees in the desert. I just thought that's just it's a very waking dream, right? I don't know if I've been to Burning Man, and for me, it's all about the art and the sense of being in everything together is an artistic expression, and it's a shared expression of art, and you have this sense of the abstract and the real, the harsh realities of the physical environment that this is in, and also the natural beauty of the environment coupled with the art. And I think it's just a magic combination that you can have in these virtual environments. And I set this little tableau over here because part of it is also creating shared experiences that give you a sense of place. And I wanted to meet with some people, and we wanted to just sort of have a quiet chat. And so I just, said, well, wouldn't it be nice? We'd like to sit on, watch the sunset here because we're facing west here, and that's the sunset. The clouds you can see are actually, they're dynamic. The clouds are changing. They're not static. It's not a static picture. It's actually three-dimensional clouds. So I set a little bench over here, sort of a funky kind of modern science fiction looking bench. And then I thought, well, how do we get there? I'm like, well, let's just put some balloons on a suspended bridge. So when I told my friend, let's meet here, and he's like, where are we meeting? I'm like, well, just walk across the bridge. Come here, just cross the bridge here. And we can walk across the bridge, look at the sunset. Don't worry, if you fall, you won't fall in the water. And then we come over here and we sit on the bench, or I like to sit up on the edge of the bench here too. And then it was interesting. They said, but could we just sit on the the bridge, it's so beautiful. We could just sit there and watch the sunset. So I was like, yeah, we can actually make it so that, let's see here. There we go. I want to change my pose. So yeah, here's a nice pose. He's like, let's just sit here, high above the water and just have this sense of place as we have a discussion. And I think I'll end it here because it's really about this. It's, in my opinion, the power of these virtual environments is not in their ability to create 3D visuals or do amazing things with color and graphics and sound, and that is, all those things are important, but it's like talking about the importance of paint, the types of paint and the types of canvas. It's really about the artistic vision that's brought to bear when using these tools, and it's about the human shared experiences that those the final art creates, and the sense of sitting here watching a sunset, having a conversation with a close friend, and you really have a sense of place. And I have a very clear visual memory in my mind and an emotional memory of having a conversation with somebody while we were looking out at the sunset like this. And I think that's, if you're thinking about ways of leveraging these virtual environments for all kinds of collaboration and helping people work with each other and just learn together. If I leave any single thought in your mind, I would love it to be, think about how you can create environments that delight the senses, that give you that chemistry of surprise, that sense of natural beauty combined with a waking dream, and those become the most real experiences imaginable in virtual environments. So yeah, any questions? Any questions?
So yes, I would like to ask questions.
Sure.
And this is kind of sort of introduce a bit of background. You used to work at Linden Lab, and then you left Second Life for a couple of years. What made you come back? I mean, what made you decide to build this installation in Second Life?
Yeah.
At this time?
Yeah. Well. Let's see. Well, first of all, when I left, I still was engaged in virtual worlds, except I wanted to learn more about different platforms. So I spent a lot of time learning game development engines. So I learned Unity and Unreal Engine, and I looked at how to build things from scratch in those environments. I wanted to understand the landscape of how you could create immersive environments, and I focused on creating more sort of customized learning experiences for some different educators. I did some work for a nursing school that was trying to create collaborative learning modules, and I said, hey, we could create, you could have nurses working together as a team in real time in a multi-user environment. And I helped build, I tend to be less of an engineer, more of a storyteller. So I would create they call level design, the experience, what's a story you could bring people through that would help them engage in a certain learning goal, right? Achieve a certain learning goal. So I did a lot of that, and then I was always keeping my toes in Second Life. I was also looking at Open Simulator, the open source version of the Second Life technology. But what really brought me back in full force around all of this was the great event of our lifetime, right? This pandemic, this COVID, because what's happened is that everyone has been thrown into this state of house confinement, and so people are reaching out to any kinds of tools they can use to connect themselves with other human beings, to work, to connect with loved ones, and so forth. And I started noticing what I kind of mentioned before, the fact that, everyone's using Zoom. And wow, yeah, Zoom's really great for connecting you to other people. But Zoom also has this weird effect where the more people who are in a Zoom call, the less it feels good in a sense, because you can't get your head around, a 10 by 10 grid of faces staring at you. It's very hard to sort of connect with that. And it feels, you feel a little cognitive dissonance. You feel a little uneasy. It's like, this is okay, but I've had enough. Let's stop this eventually. And the reason for that is because you don't have that sense of place. You don't have that sense of shared experiences with people. And the current crop of tools that are the most popular have the emotional bandwidth isn't high enough to have that true sense of, like, wow, I was really sitting with somebody having an emotional moment watching a sunset with them in a sense of shared place. And this really comes, so what really brought me back into this environment was this company that we've started up, billions of us, where a bunch of us like-minded souls realized, hey, we want to do something to help people now. Like what can we do now to help people come together and learn how to experience creativity in a shared space? And we're like, well, what is a platform we could use right now, right? That would accomplish that. And we were like, what about Second Life? Let's look into Second Life a little more deeply. We've all kept our toes in it over the years, but we looked at it more deeply and we thought, yeah, okay, we're going to use this platform. We're going to build environments. We're going to, offer our services as a company to organizations. And again, we wanted to focus on organizations. So people who wanted to bring, there's so many people who are trying to work from home who have never done it before. There's so many, educators trying to do that. Any kind of, nonprofit art galleries trying to do stuff where, what are we going to do? Put all our paintings on a web page and go, ta-da? What's happening here? Because the truth of this, in my mind, very strongly I feel about this, is that, right now we're spending a lot of time online because we have no choice. When all of this ends, and by all of this, all I mean by that is the restrictions on movement, the quarantine ends, the world's not going to snap back to exactly the way it was at all. Worlds never snap back that way after events like this. If you look at previous pandemics and global catastrophes that changed human behavior temporarily, like world wars, after they're over, the behavior patterns that happened, they don't just disappear. They permanently change society. And I think what will happen is that a lot of people will realize, yeah, I want to work from home, not all the time maybe, because I didn't like being stuck at home all the time, but I kind of like not driving 2 hours a day. So maybe I can do this. I want to talk to my employer and see if I can do this, maybe 2 times a week, maybe 3 times a week. And for travel, people will realize, wow, I'd like to do more sort of, online. I went to a couple of online live music performances, and those are pretty cool. I'm going to do more of that. And people are going to think about the positive aspects of being able to erase geography, but through technology. And I think what's going to happen is more people are going to be interested in using online tools for things like collaborative experiences, and that's what brought me back into Second Life, really.
And question, well, because a lot more sort of companies from the inside out, like Linden Lab and everything, I was always wondering, when are we going to get a Google avatar? And Google avatar that allows us to fly Google Earth, and an avatar that allows us to teleport to virtual Tokyo, and an avatar that allows us to walk Fifth Avenue in Street View.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, Google's tried virtual worlds before. Remember Lively?
Lively, yeah.
Lively, right? Multi-user social spaces that are perceptually immersive are very hard to get right.
Can you switch off the sound when you're flying?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There we go. Sorry. Yeah, and the wind. I just wanted to fly to the whale. I realized I haven't looked at the whale today to see how the whale's doing. How are you doing? Let me see. Wait a second. There we go. me pop on the way off. This is a sort of a dreamy kind of, oh, he's just blue sparkles out of, I love his eye too. He's got this very
Wow.
dreamy eye that blinks.
Oh my word.
Are you going to blink for
so
me?
magic.
Are you going to blink? He's not. There he goes. He blinked. He winked at me. We have
It's
meetings up here.
incredible.
We have meetings up here sometimes. Getting these kinds of environments right is hard because, from a company's perspective, because a lot of them want to control all of the aspects of it. They want to say, like, you can have this experience, but you can choose from one of 10 avatars, or you can use these vehicles that we made for you, or you can use these trees that we built for you, right? The real power in these environments, I'm convinced, and this is again why I think, in particular, Second Life has got the equation right. Is this environment is all user-created content. You know, this whale was created by a 3D artist. All of the art was created by different individual peoples. It's 100% created by the people in this environment, and there's no other platform like that. And I think while I think the future of there's a lot of possible virtual worlds that can be leveraged for different purposes and different, you know, there's room in the metaverse for lots of different platforms. I think the real long-term future belongs to environments like Second Life, where it completely embraces user creativity 100%. You know, there's no limitation.
Would you also have thoughts about why Facebook Horizon is still not out? I mean, this could be the time for people to play at home. Is that because of the shortage of the Quest or what? Or
oh well, Facebook's Play is very much about you know, VR, you know, stereoscopic. You put on a pair of goggles for that, and I think the challenge for that is hardware also, because it's, you know, you have to buy another piece of hardware, and I think there's a lot. I do a lot of stuff in VR too. I spend a lot of time in VR chat. I like VR chat because it's pretty malleable.
Yeah, we have presented that earlier. We love VR chat, honestly.
Yeah, because also VR chat everything's based on Unity. So if you know how to do stuff in building things in Unity, you can upload your environments. It doesn't give you the real-time malleability that a platform like Second Life gives you, but it does embrace that very much, you know, user-generated content. Although they have certain restrictions on what you can do that limit the growth. I think if I worked at VR chat, I would pivot a little bit and embrace full-on user-generated content with no restrictions like Second Life does. But I think for a lot of people, the headset is still just a real barrier. A lot of people really just don't like them. They just don't like wearing a thing on their head. I have no problem with it, but maybe it's because I've done a lot of diving. I don't mind putting something on my face, you know. But it's interesting I think you're already seeing a lot of uptick in all of these virtual world platforms. So like Second Life's registration numbers and concurrency numbers are going up, and same with VR chat, and same with AltSpace VR, and sales of the Quest. You know, they've had to ramp up production because the Oculus Quest is really, like, in my opinion, also I think the ideal head-mounted display for folks. But I think a lot of people still see VR headsets as weird, fundamentally. You know, it's like I have to put something in my head.
Thank you so much for your time. Does anybody still have a question for Pathfinder before we wrap up? Please feel free to ask the questions.
Yeah, I got a couple more minutes before I get kicked out. Are you gonna wink at me? There you go.
You're getting kicked out. Will you be swallowed up by the whale?
No, I'm trying to see if I can sit on different places. Like sometimes I can sit on his tail. I like the tail because it's sort of like it rocks you a little bit. And then there's also there's some way that you can sit on the tree branch up here. I can't figure it out.
And
I can change.
Most of the objects are mesh now, isn't it? I mean.
Yeah, this is a mesh creature. This creature.
Can you explain briefly what mesh is for some who have never heard of it?
So the same way, like if you're a 2D artist doing digital art, you know, and all of you know, like, oh, this is a JPEG or a PNG file. You know, it's a digital file format of 2D. Mesh is a standardized file format for 3D. And by embracing mesh models, you embrace a level of sort of detail, like this whale, you know, that is just amazing. It doesn't look like it's made out of blocks because it's all mesh. And in fact, when I select it, it's sort of, you know, you can see it's not made out of blocks, it's a giant mesh. The power of that is that you can leverage all of these people who create mesh content for other platforms, right? So there's a website called, I'll put it in chat here, turbosquid.com. TurboSquid is to mesh models like Amazon is to physical world products. Like, you go to TurboSquid and any digital artist can make a mesh model in Blender. Like, I'm good at maybe making chairs, mesh chairs. I put my model up on TurboSquid. Someone could buy that model and use it in their video game or upload it into Second Life or whatever they want to do with it. So it's a industry standard file format that allows you to have very you know, realistic looking 3D models pulled into Second Life. And they could be, you know, this whale could be pulled into, you know, whoever created it could have the model, you know, maybe use the model in a Unity environment or upload it into a VR chat space or something like that. So it's another, I love it because with Mesh, it means now the artists who create content in Mesh, their content can be in Second Life and it can be in anywhere. Basically.
Now, the last question to you, what do you think if Burning Man this year doesn't happen?
Yeah.
In the real life, will they all come to Second Life?
I think it should be in multiple virtual worlds. I think you know, the power of a platform like Second Life is its complete real-time malleability, right? Like, in real time, you can change models, interact with things, upload new content. The sky's the limit. I think it should be in Second Life. I think Burning Man should be in, you know, VR chat. There should be like a multiverse, right? Like a multiple universes. And I think what Burning Man could do that would be wonderful is if they have on their central website of the organization links to all these different spaces. Like, if you have a head-mounted display and you want to jump into VR chat, here's a list of all these worlds and how just click here and jump into them. And if you want to go into Second Life, click here and jump into them. If you want to go into Sign Space, click here and jump into them. You know, I think, you know, let a million worlds just sort of blossom and you know, and let people explore them. I think that would be that'd be the way to do it.
Thank you so much. Pathfinder's been a joy, and it's been the one thing I've been looking forward to at this very conference. Thank you very much for volunteering your time. You are
sure. My pleasure. And again,
fantastic.
reach out to me if you want to visit in the
and
visit the space.
Let us know when the opening is, the grand opening.
Absolutely.
You have the space prepared already for Burning Man.
I was building this out before it was canceled. So, you know, all of a sudden it's like, oh, the real one's canceled. Well, we've got the effigy.
Is it already canceled? Really?
Yeah, the physical Burning Man's been canceled. Yeah.
Oh my word.
Yeah. They canceled it a couple weeks ago. It was, yeah, that was a big blow to a lot of people.
I think so.
Because a lot of these physical art installations take months of construction time, materials, you know. Yeah. It's
well, these truckloads being taken into the Nevada desert, and 50,000 in this circle, and I just what an event. How can that ever become so big, you know, in a desert? It's just
it's wild.
Bizarre.
It's totally wild.
So,
all right, wonderful. Well, I guess that's everyone's break time now, so I'll
thank you so much.
I'll sign off. Thank you so much, and thank
you to Bojita for moderation. Thank you.
Thank you. We're having a short break after this, I think so. And we will be back at 7 o'clock with another session, which is all about cooking, and it's Symposium Spice Up Your English with Cooking. So stay tuned and see you after break.
Cool. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Very many thanks to you, Pathfinders.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Wow, I'm blown away. I'm blown away. I'm blown away.
This is like a fairy tale.